Within this section, we're going to focus on finding about vulnerabilities of websites that includes SQL injection. And we're going to find these SQL injection vulnerabilities in order to achieve the database writing, reading, updating, and deleting. We're going to use Matilda again, Metasploitable machine again in this section, and we're going to see some various options of SQL injection like post method, get method, etc. So we're going to try and capture every password on the database, and we're going to see how to get every information on a table inside of a database. So now if you're ready, let's get started. Hi! Within this section, we're going to deal with the databases that are buried in our Metasploitable machine, and in this lecture, we're going to see how to use the SQL commands that we have learned in the previous section to find out the contents of the Metasploitable database. So I'm running my Metasploitable machine on the same NAT network as my Kali Linux machine. So this is my default setup. So if you go to your Firefox and if you type the IP address of your Metasploitable machine, then you can reach the dashboard of the Metasploitable too, as we have seen in the previous lectures. And we're going to work with this, and we're going to see how to inject some SQL codes into the Matilda, okay, in the Metasploitable machine. But before we do that, I'm just going to show you the database content of the Matilda and Metasploitable machine by exploiting a vulnerability in the Metasploitable machine. So all we have to do is run a mysql command. And after that, we will have to specify the username, which is root, and the IP of the Metasploitable machine, which is 10025. So generally, this will ask for a password. And in this case, Metasploitable machine doesn't have a password for its own database, and this is clearly a vulnerability, and you won't see that kind of vulnerability in the real life examples, and we are doing this just for an example, okay? Just to see that these databases actually exist in the Metasploitable machine. And later on, we're going to see how to exploit MySQL injections as well. So after you run this command, it will take you through a session which connects to MySQL. If you type show databases and with a semicolon, of course, and hit enter, you will get the list of the current databases. You will see this information schema database, and this is a default database which contains general information about the databases. And we have other ones as well. So we have MySQL, we have OWASP 10, we have TikiWiki, and others. So we're going to see the contents of these databases. So first, I'm going to choose MySQL, and you have to type use MySQL with a semicolon and hit enter. Then it will go into the MySQL database. If you type show tables, you can see the tables. And remember, databases are like Excel sheets and Excel tables, and these tables are actually the sheets. So you can choose one in here and see the contents. So let's select everything from one of the tables in this list. For example, you can see for func, you can see for user or tables preview, time zone, it doesn't matter. Let me choose user. And I forgot to add a semicolon at the end. Let me edit and once again hit enter, okay, with a semicolon. And as you can see, I got the results from the user tables. It's a little bit complicated, but I can see the columns and I can see the values in here actually. So now I have the contents of this database. And this is a little bit complicated, as I said before, so I'm going to exit out of this one and run my SQL command one more time to go into the other databases and other tables. So I'm going to say show databases one more time with a semicolon, and then let me use OWASP 10 for instance. Okay, and in here I'm going to say show tables, and as you can see I have a credit cards table. I'm going to say select everything from credit cards, and I forgot to add semicolon one more time, so let me run this properly. And as you can see, we got the information about some dummy credit card values in here. So I got the expiration date, CCV, credit card number, and the IDs as well. So this is a very clear vulnerability, and you don't see that in real life example, as I said before, but you can come across with general MySQL injection vulnerabilities. Thus, we're going to stop here, and within the following lectures, we're going to see how to get this information with using SQL injection techniques. Hi, within this lecture, we're going to see how to inject some SQL codes in order to retrieve this information from the Matillidae database. So I'm running my Firefox, and I will just browse into my Metasploitable machine's IP address in order to go into Matillidae website. So let me make this a little bit bigger. Then I will go to 10.025, which is my Metasploitable machine IP. So it will open the default dashboard for me, and I will just browse into the Matillidae. And we have worked with DVWA before, but we haven't worked with Matillidae. Now, if you go here to login register, it will ask you for a name and a password. And if you don't have any accounts, you can register from here. And remember, the username was the admin and the password was the password. We already know this, but we're going to make this a real example. So I'm going to create a new user. So I'm choosing the username as James, and I'm choosing the password as 6 ones, okay, 11111. And for signature, you can just write whatever you want. You can just write James, or maybe we can write something different than James in order to avoid any confusion. So I'm going to say Kirk. So here we got an error message. And as you can see, it's trying to write into some files, and it fails to create these records. And it says that metasploit.accounts doesn't even exist. So here we have a more detailed information. It's trying to run this code, insert into accounts, and the columns were the username, password, and my signature, and the values was the James 1111 and Kirk. So this is why we have practiced SQL codes in the previous section. We're going to use this. We're going to use this kind of comments in order to retrieve data from the databases. And this isn't even the part of the practice. This is a bug coming with the Metasploitable machine. And in a minute, we're going to fix it. But before we do that, I just wanted to show you how you can see the comments, how you can be certain of the debugging process. So we will see this kind of errors along the way, but this is a bug. This isn't even the part of the practice, as I explained. So now we have to fix this in order to continue with our progress. And the problem here is that this metasploit.accounts doesn't even exist, so you have to go into your Metasploitable machine to change some configuration file, edit some configurations in order to have a proper database. And in order to do that, you have to edit a config file as usual. So you have to run this command. nano var www matilde config.inc, and you have to add sudo in front of the command because it requires some administrator access. So sudo nano var www matilde config.inc. We're going to edit this file using nano editor like we used to do in the previous sections. Okay, so if you hit enter, it will ask for a password, and this is msf admin again. So this is the default password for our admin user. So this is our configuration file, and as you can see, this database is hosted on localhost and the user is root, and also in the bottom we have a value called metasploit, and we have to change this metasploit, okay, in order to have a proper configuration. So come here to metasploit, okay, with arrows, and delete it. After you delete it, you have to write OWASP10 with a W, okay, and that's it. Now you have to save this with Control O and hit enter, and then Control X to get out of this. So now we are out of this file. If I say clear, now I'm okay. And I believe now we are done. We just changed Metasploitable to be OWASP10. So let me go to login register page one more time and try to register a new user. I'm again trying to register with James account, so I'm choosing the same password and I'm giving the same signature as well. And if I say create account, now it is created for me. Now I get to practice my SQL injections. So right now, suppose that we know this James account, but we don't have the password, okay, even though we have it. If I say 1111, it will surely log in here, but I don't want to do that. I'm just going to log out, and I will pretend not to know the password. So rather than giving the proper password, I'm just going to give a single quotation mark, so this sign, not double quotation mark but single, okay? So if you type it in here and hit login, as you can see, we broke the system. So it tried to run this command, so select everything from account where username is James, this is correct, and the password is 3 quotation marks. So this is what broke the system. And we got this detailed error message. And in real life examples, of course, you wouldn't find this clear, this detailed error message, but some regular error messages maybe, but it really doesn't matter. Metasploitable machine is configured to give these detailed error messages so we can see what we are doing. In real life, even though it has some SQL injection vulnerabilities, you may not see this kind of detailed message, but it really doesn't matter. As I said before, you can still do the SQL injection even if you don't see the diagnostics. So we're going to stop here, and within the next lectures, we're going to discuss how to use the single quotation mark technique in order to test for SQL injections. Hi! Starting from this lecture, we're going to use some SQL codes in order to test for SQL injection vulnerabilities. So in order to be clear, I'm going to open a LivePad and I'm going to write this down so we can know what we are doing, because we're going to test a lot of codes. So let me copy this and bring this down and open a new LivePad and paste this code in here. So we're going to follow what we are doing from this LivePad. So let me take this down a little bit and let me take this up a little bit so we can see both in one screen. So when I type name as James and when I type password as 1111, of course this is my real password, and if I click login it will log me in. Because why? Because it's running where username is James and where the password is 11111. And since this is correct, it logs me in. It checks if it's correct, and if it's correct, it logs me in. If it's not correct, it doesn't log me in. And how can we manipulate that? Let me show you a good way to manipulate this. So let me log out one more time, and I'm going to run this as James, but I'm going to manipulate the password input. So here, if I say James, it will add James in here, and when I type my password, it completes this with adding a single quotation at the end. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. If I delete everything in here, so if I type 1111 in the password, it adds one single quotation at the end of this sentence, and it runs this command for me when I hit on login, right? So if I can disable this single quotation at the end somehow, then I can run whatever I want to run beforehand. So what do I mean? How can I disable this single quotation mark? So in programming languages, when you want to take a note, you can add a hash, or you can add double slashes like in Java. But in SQL, you can add a hash, and we're going to do that in the Python section as well. So if you add a hash, it won't run as a code, but it counts as a comment. It counts as a note, okay? So it isn't a code anymore, so we can complete the sentence on our own way. So what do I mean? What can I write here more in order to manipulate this comment? I can check for additional responses, I can check for additional features, and try to log my way in even though I don't know the password. So right now I'm giving the correct password, but if I add something like this, okay, with a single quotation and say and 1 is equal to 2, it means that I'm going to check for if the password is 111, and also I'm going to check to see if 1 equals to 2, okay? And it doesn't make sense, of course, because 1 isn't equal to 2, and you have to write this in upper cases. So if it works out, this won't log me in, right? Because 1 is not equal to 2. So select everything in here, okay, and copy this. And don't copy the last single quotation because it will add this automatically. And as you can see, even though I have written down the password as 111, it didn't work out because it ran the code in the same way that we want. It checked for 1 is equal to 2. If you do it like this, 1 is equal to 1, and copy this sentence in here, and again, don't take the last quotation mark and say James, and if you hit login, then it will log you in. So now we know that we can use the hash sign in order to manipulate the SQL command, so we can try to run another SQL command to log us in even though we don't know the password. So we're going to do that within the next lecture. Hi, within this lecture we're going to see how we can log in without knowing the password, as we have practiced in the previous section as well. And this vulnerability that we're going to be testing is called post method SQL injection. So right now we know we can run some commands by hashing out the last single quotation and use it on our own way. Okay, so completing the sentence with our own way, we can manipulate the SQL codes that are run on the server. So in order to test this, I'm going to see if we have any admin accounts. So it is a bad idea to use admin as a username for administrator accounts, but most of the websites do this. So rather than giving James, I'm going to use the username admin, and I don't know the password, of course, and I'm going to give the password as 1, and I will check to see if 1 is equal to 1. And since the 1 will be equal to 1, it will log me in if I change this to be OR. If I say AND, the both sides of the equation will have to be true, and if I say OR, it doesn't matter if one side is false, it will still log me in since 1 is equal to 1. So let us try this, and we're going to do this in a way that we did in the previous section. So copy this, don't get the last single quotation mark, and paste it as a password and give admin as username. So it will run the command as we have written down in below, and it will log us in as admin. So now we managed to retrieve the admin account by using an SQL injection. So we can reach out any menu that we want. So let me log out one more time and test to see if we can actually take this further. So even if this works, the next step doesn't work in some cases, but let's try and see if we can make it work. Rather than injecting some commands in the password section, I'm going to take this one step further and inject it in the username section. So I'm going to comment out the last single quotation in the admin, in the username here. So the rest won't even matter. So I'm going to give a random password and it will run this, but rather than saying username is admin, I'm going to say something like admin with a hash, and the rest of the code won't even get run. So if I type admin with a single quotation mark in here, the rest doesn't matter. So don't forget to add the hash, of course, and you will just give a random password and it will log you in because this username has this vulnerability as well. And you cannot have both in most of the cases, but in Matildae we do have both. So right now we have learned how to use this technique in order to manipulate the codes that are run on the server when we try to log in with some usernames of which we don't know the passwords. So we're going to stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to see a different version of the SQL injection. Hi! Within this lecture we're going to see another SQL injection method called get SQL injection. So in the previous sections we have actually managed with the post method, and now we're going to see the get method, and in order to do that, go here OWASP 10 A1 injection SQLi extract data and user info. So this is a basic website where you type your name and the password and it gives you the details of your account. So if you say view account details, you will see your username and the password and the signature. Of course, we're going to see how to get this data without knowing the password. And in the URL, now we have seen some parameters, right? So this is a new thing for us. So when we see parameters, we get to try stuff as we did in the previous sections. So let me copy this URL in here and try to manipulate this URL. And in here we have the username and the password parameters, and we have them as James and 1111 in password. So when we give this information, we get a result. So this is a get method, and we're going to try and manipulate this error in order to bypass this. So I'm going to try the same thing as before. Within the previous section, we have managed to insert some hashes and some single quotes before James, or before username actually, and we managed to retrieve the information. Now I'm going to try and edit the same thing in here as well. I'm going to edit this, manipulate this in a way that it won't get run after the username and the password won't even matter. Okay, so we did that in the last section, last lecture, in this line. Okay, so we hashed out the password phase. Now I'm going to do the same thing in here as well. And if it doesn't work out, you can always try this with the passwords, but now I'm going to try this with the username to keep things simple. So add a hash and a single quotation. And I'm going to run this like this. And as you can see, we don't get any result in here, and it's because you cannot just type hash in a URL. You have to convert this to an HTML encoding, which is %23 in this case. In HTML encoding, rather than writing hash, you have to write %23. If I hit enter right now, I will get the same result without giving any password. Okay, so if I type like this, this will work, and the password doesn't even matter in this case because we're running like this. We're hashing out everything after the James, everything after the username. And you can try this with admin in order to confirm this is working. Okay, rather than saying James, you can just say admin, and as you might know, admin doesn't have the password of 1111, but we have the information. As you can see, the admin password was admin pass, and we didn't know that, but we managed to get it anyhow. So we're going to stop here, and we're going to deal with the databases with the following lecture. Hi, within this lecture, we're going to see how we can get every account information on the current database. And we're going to do that with using the information that we have gathered from the error message that we got previously. In that error message, remember, we have seen the table name was accounts, and we know it. And you might think that, what if we don't know the table name? And we're going to see how to work with that in the following lectures. But right now, suppose that we got a detailed error message and we know that the table name is accounts and we know the username is admin. We have used this in order to obtain admin username and password information in the previous lecture. Remember? Now I'm going to enhance this. I'm going to add some new features to this command, and I'm going to use a command called union. Okay, so let me copy this line and paste it in the below because I'm going to change this and I want to keep this as a base. So right now I can do some changes, and I'm going to add some more features as I said before. I'm going to say union in capital words in uppercase letters, and I'm going to say select everything from accounts because we have learned that the table name was accounts previously. Now this union will run this right side and the left side of this command as well. So I'm going to have a space in here, and after that I'm going to say union, and in a URL it doesn't matter if you type it in uppercase or lowercase, so I'm going to just write select everything from accounts and hit enter. And as you can see, I managed to retrieve every information on this database. So right now, I see there is a username called Adrian, there is a username called John, Jeremy, Bryce, and Samurai, and some others as well. And we managed to retrieve this by using the keyword union, and union again runs the left hand side of this command and the right side of this command as well at the same time simultaneously. So we managed to run the username is admin thing and the other stuff as well. And I believe we have to learn how to deal with cases that we don't see the account's name, the table name, because in real life you might not get this detailed information as we got previously. And you have to dig deeper and you have to gather more information in order to have a successful SQL injection in that case. So we're going to stop here, and within the next lecture we're going to see how to do that. Hi, within this lecture we're going to see how can we learn about the database name so that we can dig deeper and later on try to find out about the table name as well. So suppose that we don't know the database name and we're trying to get one, and they are generally stored with column names like database, user, and version. But we have to find the columns and we have to find the current values. And in order to find that, we're going to find out how many columns that we have in this database. So let me copy this line and show you how it's done. Okay, I'm going to paste the line below because I'm now going to change this. So rather than saying where username is admin and union select, I'm going to use a new command called order by. So let me delete all of these things from here. Okay, I don't know the table name, so I'm going to delete from accounts thing. Rather, I'm going to say order by 1. It means that order this thing by first column. Okay, so it will order the results according to the first column values. So let me try this. So let me delete everything from here, union select from everything from accounts, and rather I will say order by 1. And it will give me one result because I'm searching for username is admin and password is 111, and it doesn't matter which password I'm giving. But if I say order by 10, it will give me an error because there is nothing called column 10 in this database. So right now we see the command that it's trying to run, and we see the error message. The error message is there is nothing called 10th column. So let me try by 6 for instance, and we still got this message. So let me try by 5, and we're going to see the result now. So it means that there are 5 columns in this database. How do we know? Because we didn't get any error messages in order by 5, but we got one in order by 6. So rather than saying order by 1 or order by 6, right now I'm going to say union select from 1 and comma 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it means that select the column names. So I'm going to delete everything from here, and after admin I will say union select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it will select the columns and it will display them to me. So if I scroll down a little bit, I will see something like this. So this indicates that there are some values on second, third, and fourth columns. Username, password, signature doesn't matter. We only know that there are some values on second, third, and fourth columns. So I'm trying to find out about the database, user, and version names, as I said before, and now I know they are stored on second, third, and fourth. So I'm going to replace second with database, third with user, and fourth with version. So this works most of the time, and of course some smart administrators might change these names as well, but we're going to assume it's not changed. And the first one is not user, first one is database as default. Okay, database, and we have to use this parenthesis thing. And the second one is user, and the third one, not Siri, the third one is the version. If I do it like this, if I hit enter, then I will see the database name, the username, and the version name. At this point, I might try to connect to MySQL by running MySQL with root account. And I might try to see if it asks for a password or not. But I'm not going to do that because it's very easy to do and I showed you how to do it, but rather I will try to use that information that we have gathered, and I will try to dig deeper and find more about these databases and try to inject some more SQL commands to retrieve more information. That's what we are going to do in the following lecture. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to dig a lot deeper and we're going to see the table names of this OWASP 10 database. And in order to do that, I'm going to use the same technique that we have used in the previous lecture, and I'm going to replace this database, user, and version values with table name and other related stuff. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it in here because it might get a little long so we can see it better. So for the time being, I'm only selecting one database, user, version, and 5. And as you can see, I'm not getting anything from first and fifth column, but rather I see the results in second, third, and fourth. And so I'm going to delete database from here, and in order to retrieve the table name, you have to write table name. And again, I'm not using first or fifth column because I'm not getting any information, as you can see. So I'm going to delete database and rather I will say table name. And it has to be exactly like this, not table names, but table name. And this time I don't need any user information, so I'm going to say null. And I don't need any version information, so I'm going to say null. And I'm going to specify the database that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this with inside information schema. And we have seen this before, right? So I'm going to do this from information schema.tables. As you might remember, we have seen this information schema when we connected to the SQL session of Metasploitable machine. And this is a default table. This is always created when we first create MySQL, so we can get this information from information schema. And as I explained before, it contains general information about the whole databases. So I'm going to pass everything in here and hit enter. And now, as you might see, we have all the table names from all databases with inside Metasploitable machine. So I have too many results in here. To be specific, I have 237 records. So I have character sets, collations, I have columns, column privileges, key column usage routines, and everything. And I can search through everything in here and try to get more information, and I can try to find my way in here as well. But rather, I'm going to filter this result because I have too many. And I want to get only information related to OWASP 10 database. So I don't want anything else. Of course, you may choose to do it from here as well, since you can get more information about whole databases in my Metasploitable machine, but right now I only need information from OWASP 10. So I'm going to add a where clause in here, and as you might remember, this filters the result. I'm going to say where table schema equals to OWASP 10, and you have to put some single quotation marks in between. So OWASP 10, okay, and this will only display the results back to me from OWASP 10 database. So rather than this, I'm going to select everything in here and delete, and then I'm going to paste what I have copied. And as I explained before, maybe you don't want to do this, maybe you want to scan all the results, but right now I think it will be more precise for us to display the table names related to OWASP 10. And as you can see, now we got the result back, and it has some table names called accounts, blocks table, credit cards, hit block, captured data, and others as well. And these are the same results that we got back when we dealt with the SQL connection in the first lecture. Maybe you remember that. So we are on the right track. Now we managed to gather the table names as well. So we're going to stop here, and we're going to finally get all the information related to these table names in the following lecture. Hi! Within this lecture, we're going to retrieve some results from this accounts table that we have gathered in the previous lectures. Actually, at this point, you know how to get information from accounts, because right now we know the table name, and we have seen how to deliver information, how to retrieve information in the previous lectures. But I'm going to show you some more detailed commands, some more advanced commands, so you know how to work with them. Okay? So right now we know the table name, we know the database name, we know everything, but we don't know the column names in that certain table. First, we're going to see the column names, and then we're going to retrieve these values with respective column names. And in order to see the column names, we're going to be using a code like this. So I'm going to copy this and paste it below. So I'm going to change something from here. Rather than getting the table name, I want to get the column name, column underscore name. And I don't need anything else, so I'm going to leave this null. And I'm not going to take this from information schema.tables. Now I'm going to take this from information schema.columns, and we don't need this anymore because we have table name as accounts. Okay, so I manipulated this a little bit more, so I'm going to delete everything and paste the new sentence in here. So let me delete everything and paste, and hit enter, and let's see if we got the result. And apparently I made a mistake, and as you can see, I left an extra single quotation in here. So let me delete it and hit enter one more time, and now I can see some column names. So I see there is a username column, password column, and my signature column as well. So I can try and get these values belonging to username, password, and my signature. And I have some ID column as well, but I don't think we're going to need that. So how can we add this to our code? So let me copy one more time and change it a little bit more. So copy it, paste it below, and then Rather than saying column name, I'm just going to write column names as username, okay, and the password. And for third, I can just say is admin, for example. I'm not interested in a signature. So I'm not going to take this from information schema anymore because I'm just going to take it from accounts. So right now, finally, I am working inside of accounts table and I know the column names and I can get any information that I want. So let me delete everything from here and let me delete the single quotation this time and hit paste and hit enter. And as you can see, I finally managed to retrieve the username, password, and is admin. And I can see all the admins. Signature doesn't matter. I have specified third column as is admin, so I now see Adrian is admin, John is not admin, Jeremy is not admin. So I hope you enjoyed this section. If you got confused during the way, it doesn't matter, you can always come back and review it later. And furthermore, we're going to stop here and in the next section, we're going to see some automated tools to find out about these SQL vulnerabilities and have injections. So now you know how to find SQL injection vulnerabilities, how to exploit them to reach the database of a website server. Now, up until now, we have been working manually in order to gather some information about vulnerabilities and ways of exploiting them. Now, within the next section, we're going to focus on tools that do this process automatically for us.